Hello and welcome to Georgia Sight's online needle tatting class. Where we left off in the last lesson, we were at tying in our ends. Okay, there are several ways that you can tie in your ends: tat over tail, sewing them in. There's so many different avenues. You can tie a knot and snip them. Okay, but if you tie a knot on something that's going to get a lot of use, it's coming out. Okay, but for something like a sun catcher or something like that that's not going to be messed with a lot, you can get by with just tying a square knot. Okay, however, I prefer to tie in my ends or sew them in, and needle tatters tend to use the needle that they just tatted with to sew their ends in. Well, the problem with sewing your ends in and going through the back side of these double stitches is you stretch these stitches out as you're pulling that needle through. Again, you see what I'm getting at? And so it'll stretch them out and it looks a little wonky. You can use your needle and go and do the back and forth method through the double stitches, but it doesn't hold as well as running it under the stitches. So what I have done is I do beadwork, and I have some beading needles called big eye needles. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this needle, when it's open, that's the eye of it. I mean, you just about have to be blind not to put a piece of thread in that thing. But these are great, and they're small enough that when you come up through them double stitches, you don't even notice it. So what we're going to do is on one side, I'm going to hide this tail here, okay, using the method under the stitches, okay, and on the other side, I'm going to show you how to go between the stitches. I have tied a half of a knot, the same knot that we use throughout tatting with a needle, right here. And this is the tail that's going that direction. So what I want to do is run it up underneath these double stitches. I'm going to zoom in just a hair so you guys can see this, what I'm doing, because I'm working with this big eye needle and I want you to see up close where it's going. It's going right under these double stitches, and you just start right here with the very first one, and you start working that big eye needle under, and you're going to have to wiggle. Okay, you don't need to go under too many stitches. All right, 3, 4, 5 maybe. If you really want, to make it stick in there, you can. But you don't want to come out at the end of a stitch. You want to come out in between a stitch, in between the first and the second half of a stitch, if at all possible. Okay. And you just pull it and work it through. Once you get it through and your needle is clear, pull it on up. Okay, now here's where it can get difficult. This is where my beading needles get bent. Once you get it pulled, you just keep pulling, and keep pulling until it's snug. Okay, once you get it snug, you want to work that thread to where it's dead center of that stitch. After you do that, bend it back, take your close cutting sharp scissors I told you to get, and snip. Make sure you don't snip your tatting, and then just wiggle a little bit. That pushes whatever's poking out back in, and it's hidden. You see? Can you see that? You don't see my tail anymore. Now, on the other side, what we're going to do is we're going to do the back and forth method of sewing in our ends. And it's similar to sewing, regular sewing, okay? And it's just as productive. It's just you take a chance of your ends when you snip them, of fraying and coming out, okay? I'll tell you the pros and the cons of everything. Alright, so here we go. We're on the back side, and what we want to do is go, this is the in and out. On the back side, you want to go in between your double stitches and straight up through the center. Okay? And you can do this with a sewing needle if you'd prefer. Okay? Any kind of needle really would work. This tatting needles work great for this because you're just going up underneath the waistband of the double stitch. And this one just doesn't want to cooperate right now. Seem to be having that problem lately. Okay, come on through. If you find it difficult to get it to go over that, just work it, work it, work it. Once you get it through, pull your thread through. Okay? All the way. Now, you're going to come back through the next double stitch this way. You see me? And it's going to be on the back side. Okay? As I said, this sewing in ends is something I don't like to do. I use my floss threaders, but I'm a shuttle tatter, and using floss threaders with shuttle tatting is fairly easy. I tat over my tails, things like that. Anything to avoid a needle, okay? Because I'm not crazy about sewing. I do it, but I'm not crazy about it. Anyway, after we get it to cooperate and get underneath of that waistband, another problem is this is crochet cotton. It doesn't manipulate like tatting thread. Okay? We go underneath that one. After you get under 4 or 5 of these pant waistbands, then what you do is you're going to stretch that thread and pop it right into the ridge of that piece. Let me show you. Watch what I'm doing here. I popped it. You hold the piece and you pull. Give it some pull. And you see it runs right in the ridge of the stitches. Okay? When you go to snip this, you have to really be careful. You want to get it close, but you don't want to snip your double stitch. So watch what you're doing and snip. But as I said, the ends can fray. So you just manipulate that thread to hide them ends. Pull it towards the end and it'll hide it. But you can see the difference. This is going under the stitches and this is going through the ridge. And you see how it can change the look of the tatting by going through the ridge. But it's something you can use to sew in your ends. Now, on the next video, I'm going to show you how to use a floss threader to put it in place. And when I show you that floss threader, that same technique can be used to tat over tails. It's the same technique. We're just using a floss threader. So, until the next video, I hope you've learned something. I want you to have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and happy tatting.